Hello, I'm Chris Ott, and the chances that I'm going to keep this video are nil, because it's a first try. It's something that I think is going to be very difficult and take several tries and a lot of editing probably. This is something that's been on my mind for a while, and what this is for is for me to do a first try and then watch it and maybe have some people watch it and give me feedback on how to improve it. But I'm not going to be able to get this right the first time. But I still want to record it because it's been really on my mind, and I'm trying to free up my mind from it kind of causing me some brain fog. Now, this is actually something really disappointing happened, and that is that I can't find the remote to the projector that projects on the screen behind me, and because of that, we can't have a PowerPoint, which I've been working on. Can't have those slides. I might be able to edit some of those in post-production, but I can't show those as I go. But I still want to try, even though hopefully we'll find that remote eventually. We really need it. I can't believe it's missing. It always goes back in the same place. But I've looked everywhere. Okay, this show's called The Point, and it's about a single matter in Meher Baba's main book, God Speaks, and it's actually about a single word in the book and about its meaning. And I say this is a deep dive, The Point, a deep dive into the meaning and significance of a single word in God Speaks. The importance of interpreting this one word correctly can't be overstated. This has actually been on my mind for 20 years, and I have, who has understood me? A couple of people have understood me, but for the most part, no one has. And it's not like I haven't written this, but I haven't written it as the main focal point of anything that I've done. This has been a big miss for me. I need to do this, and it bothers me. Now, recently, it occurred to me that I've been making videos that are kind of starting to drift off point, like about conspiracy theories or my life growing up. And these are not. This is maybe I'll do those someday, but it's too soon for those. I still haven't covered the real central part of my idea, and this one point is right there. I would even call it the what was I going to call it? The big the blockbuster. I mean, this is kind of, if all my ideas are really stem from this one idea, everything I've ever said comes from and leads back to this one idea. And it's from Meher Baba's main book, God Speaks. And I've contested for a very long time that people have not understood God Speaks. Unless you understand the true meaning of this word, how Baba is using it, you will not understand him. And you'll think that you do. You'll go and you even give talks and write books, but you won't know what he's saying. That's how critical it is. As a matter of fact, I believe sincerely and firmly that if people don't get this one point, there will be no manifestation. Meher Baba talked about his manifestation. That is the outcome of his life. So whatever he did in the world, we still await it to manifest in the world. That's how I understand him. And he connected this to the breaking of his silence and so forth, which appears to have been a metaphor. And we are now going through a great awakening in the world, whether you know it or not. And some do, definitely. And by the way, I gotta go get my coffee. I'll be right back. So this seems to me to be a more than appropriate time to make this point known, and hopefully it'll be known publicly. These videos, they go out to the whole world, and I don't have much of a following, but I think the time will come when this will spread and people will come and take a look, but maybe not yet. But it's got to be out there, and I've got to say this clearly before I pass away. So, Baba's teachings about the world being an illusion, and his teaching that we are all one, will never become more than hackneyed and incomprehensible platitudes unless we get this point I'm going to try to make. If we do, his words, the universe is illusion, imagination, nothing, and you and I are not we, but one, so things are not as they appear, will not be understood intuitively. Only by a real understanding of this one word in God Speaks do these words come to intuitive life. And suddenly, you're reading Baba and you see it everywhere. Once you see the point I'm going to make, you're going to see Baba saying it everywhere, but we didn't see it. We had to sort of have the point before we looked for it. Then you'll see it, and it's there. And then you'll go, well, I can't believe I missed it. And maybe some will miss it for a long time, but for a few, they're going to eventually get what I'm saying. Now, there's only one way to understand what I'm about to say, what Baba said, and if you don't get it the way I'm going to describe, you will always find yourself in a Cartesian dualism. You'll never a monism, like Baba described. You will always have the mind-body problem, which I've talked about endlessly. You will not be able to solve it with a misunderstanding of this one sentence in God Speaks. It makes all other sentences have their meaning. There'll be a dualism between God and his creation. It'll have God as an occult entity. That means some hidden entity, kind of like an ascended master, or the God in the clouds. You'll have a dualism between the experienced world and the theoretical causal physical one, which in philosophy is called the causally responsible external world, which it also becomes an occult theoretical entity. And you'll have a dualism between every man and his brother. There's nothing but dualism, separation, and I believe this is why the children of the Baba people didn't stay with Baba, because if you don't understand this one idea, there's nothing really new in Baba. You can get the same stuff elsewhere. Reincarnation, karma, mukti, these kinds of concepts, they already exist. But this one idea doesn't. This is what's new in Baba. This is what's gripping, but it hasn't been gripped. Okay, and it's the reason that the Baba followers are kind of have been leaning toward channeling and things like that too, because of the separation they've created through this misunderstanding. And I have to say, this misunderstanding is totally understandable, given the circumstances of how we're raised and the propaganda that we're exposed to. We live in a certain paradigm without realizing it. I talked about this in my first book. There's kind of a collective lens that people look through, and so they don't know they're looking through it. I went through this morning showing it to a good friend, and she really couldn't get the idea, and I really could show her why, and I showed her what we're taught, and she agreed that is what we're taught. All right, with this misunderstanding, unity that Baba describes becomes an impossible, except as an incomprehensible doctrinal dogma to parrot incongruously and impose upon humanity, which is sort of what the great, the elite are trying to do, sort of a one world state. But that's not what Baba came to bring, that kind of coercion to act like we have unity, but to actually see that unity. Now, Baba said this, I have the quotes, said, without this understanding that we're all really one life, the thing that we get to, there's no solution to our problems. No solution will work. All right. Now, before I begin to talk, now that word, by the way, is on page 10 in God Speaks. It's the word appear. We're going to talk about the word appear on page 10 of God Speaks in the second edition, which is the current edition, and it was on page 9 in the original first edition, 1955. Okay? And we're going to go, this is where we're going to do a deep dive into the meaning of this word. Now, before I can start, I have to convey a couple concepts. Okay, one of them is the word, I have to define some terms. The words, as I'm using them here, subjective and objective, okay? If you just look up in the dictionary, on your computer, say, the word subjective, it'll say based on personal beliefs or feelings rather than facts. It's just subjective. But that's related to what we're going to say, but it's not what we mean. Here we mean subjective in its philosophical sense, and it has to do with the distinction between the subject and the object, or like in grammar, the doer and the done. So in perception, we would call that the seer and the seen. So this is lifted from Wiktionary. It's actually a very good dictionary, sometimes better than published ones. It's user kept up, but it's shareware, but it's very good, and it has this meaning that we use in philosophy. So it means pertaining to subjects as opposed to objects. A subject is one who perceives or is aware. An object is the thing perceived, or the thing that the subject is aware of. Okay, that's how I'm using these words. The seer and the seen. Or as Ralph Waldo Emerson wrote, the witness and the spectacle. That's great use of words, but he's a poet. Okay, so now I'm going to go to the word. Oh, and I also wanted to convey this one more thing. I will show a video here, or one or two clips from videos, so that you can see what I'm describing. There's a condition, and this will help later. I know it'll seem odd now, but this is a truly subjective experience, okay? But it's not just an opinion, it's subjectively experienced by the witness.
It usually starts off as this kind of a small gray spot in your vision, kind of like an after image after staring at a bright light and then turning away from it. That little after image spot starts to grow and turns into almost a C or crescent moon shape. And then it starts to kind of give a flickering appearance, kind of like a strobe light. It can also start to have like a colorful zigzag pattern. And some people even say that it's a colorful, almost kaleidoscope in their vision.
And it's the way we're going to talk about the word appear. Now, when scintillating scotoma begins, it can be kind of in a little region of your field of vision, and then as it goes on, it can spread and grow, and then it usually parts in about 15 minutes. It's just caused by blood pressure in your brain. And it's not a serious condition, but it can be very upsetting when you first have it. I've had it several times. It's not that rare. We can look it up. So now let's go. I just wanted to say that because I'm going to refer to scintillating scotoma later as an analogy for something I'm going to say. Okay. Now here's the line. It's in God Speaks. It says, through this most finite point, he means the own point, okay, of manifestation of the first urge, the shadow of the infinite, which for him is the universe, gradually appeared and went on expanding. All right. That's Meher Baba, God Speaks, second edition, page 10. In the first edition from 1955, it's page 9. Now, because we are in the 20th century, we were brought up with a lot of language that was very similar about the Big Bang. So this is how Baba has been understood, to be talking about this Big Bang, the world coming out of some point, sort of exploding out. But I'm going to show that that's not what Baba is saying. And if you think that, you've misunderstood Baba, and it's not your fault, but you really need to get on board if you want to really understand Baba. So we're focusing in on the universe gradually appeared and went on expanding. Now, I'm going to show this picture from a video about the Big Bang, and I'll show a bit of that video.
At the beginning, no space, no time. Everything in the known universe compressed into a dot smaller than an atom. Suddenly, out of this, the universe expands. Stars and galaxies form, creating the cosmos we see today. The story of our universe starts with a Big Bang.
What's the problem here with this image? Okay. If the word appear, okay, I should say, the word appear, the definition that we're looking for, it means come into sight, okay? So if this image of the universe coming out of a hole, coming out of this origin point or ground zero of the Big Bang, if this picture is of that universe coming out of that hole and it's coming into sight, who does it come into sight to? Whose experience does this picture depict? You go, oh, it's just theoretical. It's no. I'm gonna keep working on this till you get it. This doesn't make sense. There can't be anyone's perspective what you're seeing, because what we're going to learn is they're going to say that space and time come out of this hole. Okay, that's the current view of the Big Bang. Baba is not describing the Big Bang, and Baba never ever said the words Big Bang. However, to add to the confusion, to add to the sense that Baba is talking about the Big Bang, there's a footnote. And this is one of the most problematic pieces of writing in God Speaks, and there are others, and I talk about them. But this might be one of the worst. Now, these footnotes, of course, are added by the editor, but it should be known that when Baba handed God Speaks over to the editors, who are the Sufis, Ivy Deuce and the other, Don Stevens, those are the editors that he handed this to. I think the very next day, he never used the alphabet board ever again. So therefore, when they consulted with Baba with questions about what he meant, you must not imagine Baba spelling out the answer on the alphabet board, because he didn't use an alphabet board. So if you're quoting Baba, You're really, like, it's an exact quote, what he said, you're being disingenuous. And sure enough, in the first edition, it has quotes, and it says, Baba says this thing. But then in the second edition, which Baba himself edited, and I have the years when Baba edited it, went over it very carefully, Baba had Erich remove the words Baba says and had him remove the quotes. He left the words. Now this was apparently some reply, some query. Well, what did Baba mean by appear when the world appeared? Well, had Don, Bin, or Ivy been philosophers, they would have known what it means, because it has a meaning in philosophy, which means to come into sight, to phenomenally come into sight. Okay? Now, let's go back to scintillating scotoma a moment. Scintillating scotoma appears and goes on expanding. It comes into sight subjectively and goes on expanding, but nothing actually oozes out of your eye or comes out of your eye. Okay? It's rather, but it does appear and go on expanding, which is what it says here. But it doesn't come out of it. Now, this is impossible because prior to the original whim, there was no space. So there was no space for it to come into, to come out of that point. There is no out of the point. That's a misconception. The point isn't in space. Space is in the point. And not really. It's only an illusion that appears from that point. And so the own point is actually a point of view or a point of perspective. And it is the point of view from which the illusion is imagined and goes on expanding. And since there is no other point of imagining, you yourself are perceiving all that you perceive, hear, smell, taste, and think from the vantage of the own point. The own point is in us, all right? Because in this imagination, we supervened and we find ourselves in that imagination. And all of Baba's writing goes with this. We experience a dream within a dream. So all this is God's dream, and we are part of God's dream, and we are dreaming in God's dream. Nothing ever really came out of the own point, and Baba makes this clear. Creation never really happened. In the eternity of reality, there is absolutely no such thing as creation, preservation, or destruction. Neither is there space, nor is there any scope for relativity, much less could there ever be the correlated factors of time, such as the past, present, and future. So once again, creation, it doesn't really occur. Nothing really gets created. It gets imagined. All right? Now, I have sought so many ways to make a person be able to see the difference between these two understandings of the sense of this point. This is not a point in space. Remember, there is no space before the original whim, so this point can't be in space. By the way, that in the Big Bang, it's supposed to exist before space too. That doesn't make it any closer to the truth. The Big Bang is wrong. In the Big Bang, the world really does come out of this as a physical thing. It's physical. Baba is talking about imagination from the point of view of the point. So it's not a point in space. It's the point of the point of view, the perspectival point. It doesn't even exist as a point. The point is everywhere, you could say, but it's the real everywhere. So it's not everywhere in space, because there is no space. It's the real everywhere. It's real esoteric, it's very mystical, but we have to see this difference, because When it's subjective and it's God's imagination that he sees like a skittling scotoma begin to emerge after he asks the original question, who am I? It begins to appear and go on expanding from the vantage point of the own point. Then eventually you who are God find yourself as Joey or Sally or Ben in this dream, and then you are still experiencing your experience from the vantage point of the original wind, because it is the only actual vantage point from which all seeing is done. There's really only one soul, and there's really only one seer. The seeing is different according to the sanskaras, but the seer is one. Now you see, if you will see it this way, that you have found yourself in God's imagination and you yourself are God, but are experiencing yourself as separate due to your sanskaras, you now, if you can hold that for a moment, you actually intuitively grasp that we are all one. And you actually intuitively grasp that the world is an illusion. Unlike the Big Bang, which is a materialistic idea that the world exists really fundamentally, and matter is most fundamental in materialism. That's not what we think. We think matter is just something that that God imagines. And you, in God's imagine it, of course, too. So we can imagine something coming out of something else. And then we have to go, but where is the space for it to come out into? And if there's no time, then there is no time in which this can take place. So we have a real problem. So what really Baba means by appear is becomes visible to God, begins to become visible. First, with the most iota, the infinitely finite first atom, you could say. It's the first experience, and then that goes on expanding. And God experiences himself as being that atom and so forth until he's a squirrel and a lion and a man and a God-realized person. But let's just briefly look at this footnote. The footnote says that this word appear, that the sense to be conveyed is that the shadow of the infinite seeped through or oozed out of the most finite point. Well, that's the Big Bang. So the editors are correcting Baba, and they're putting in what the physicists already think. Whether it's ooze or seep, this seems to excite some people reading this. Oh, Baba's telling us it didn't come out fast, it came out slow. Yeah, no, that doesn't change it. That's fine. Maybe the world appeared for God very slowly. After all, it took billions and billions of years for him to even find himself as a human being. So yeah, it was slow. If you want to call that oozing or seeping, but it doesn't, because those words convey coming out of a thing. So something physically coming out of a thing. And there's no spiritual seeping out. These are words from the oil industry, which Don was an executive in. And his degree was in chemistry. And these are there's something called an oil seep or a petroleum seep, in which oil oozes out of the ground or out of a hole at the bottom of the ocean, often when they remove a pipeline that was from a drill spot. There will continue to be an oil seep or oozing of oil out of that hole for a long time, and this is these have been photographed, and but that's not what Baba is saying. That's what people would assume he was saying in 1955, and there was already the Big Bang Theory, of course, and that's what they would assume. And this is the sense in which people think Baba is talking about our physics, and he's not. He's talking about and the experience of God from the perspective of God. That's what God Speaks is. It's not the story of materialism. It's the story of God's having the dream in order to know himself. Okay? From August 1953 until June 1954, Baba dictated the first 8 chapters of God Speaks, and that includes this page 10 of the second edition, in which this sentence appears. On September 30, 1954, at the end of the 3 incredible weeks, Baba gave this book to the Sufis for editing and publication in America, and the following month, Baba stops using his alphabet board forever. Therefore, this could not have been spelled out on the alphabet board by Baba. How Baba would have conveyed it, I don't know. I don't think that he really did. I think that there's a miscommunication here. I'm now going to go over quotes that show that Baba's talking about a point of view, not a point in space. I'm just going to read them. I didn't have time to get them into the PowerPoint. Okay? But all of these will convey the same concept that I'm describing. The first of these, okay, this is in God Speaks. In reality, these 4 journeys are never journeyed, for God has nowhere to journey. Okay. In reality, he is without beginning and without end. Let me fix this. And everything which has the appearance of being appeared from that which has no beginning and passes back into that which has no end. So the world appears to be created, but doesn't get created. In the idea of something coming out in space, it does get created, but Baba is saying right here, it only appears to who? To whom? To God. Which is, and to every, see, right now, to use modern contemporary popular language, I am God having a Chris experience right now, okay? So it appears to me is the same as saying it appears to God in Chris. In Meher Baba, it doesn't appear to be real at all. Okay, in the eternity of reality, there's absolutely no such thing as creation, preservation, or destruction. Neither is there space, nor is there any scope for relativity. But, I already read that. Okay, and then because of the most gross first impression of the first urge, the infinite soul, with a capital S, the infinite soul experienced for the first time, right there. That's God Speaks, also page 10, right on the same page. God had this experience for the first time. The other idea is that, an engineer is across a field and he sees, the world coming out of a point. No. All right. Let me read you some quotes from Infinite Intelligence. These are very important. Now, in Infinite Intelligence, Baba is even more explicit about this. You would think that I got all my ideas from Infinite Intelligence, except that I published my first book where I conveyed them in 2004, and Infinite Intelligence came out in 2005. So I never had the advantage of seeing it until after I had already expressed my ideas, because I guessed them from God Speaks. But Baba just says, produced from the Bindu point of imagination. The Bindu point is the same as the Om point in Infinite Intelligence. Produced from the Bindu point of imagination, not out of the Bindu point, produced from the Bindu point, through the most finite dark point, pupil of the eye. So it's just like I'm describing. It appears to the eye. The infinite subtle and gross reflection is produced from the most finite dark bindu point. Point bindu pupil of eye. So really seeing the universe is nothing but the subtle and gross reflection or shadow of the Paramatma, of the soul, produced from the most finite point, pupil, putli in Hindi, in it. Nothing but the reflection or shadow of the light produced from the most finite darkness point in it. But the reflection of the intelligence produced from the bindu point of imagination existing in intelligence. This point is not a point in space like is imagined in the incongruous Big Bang Theory. Comes out through the pupil of his eye. The exact quote from Infinite Intelligence. Comes out through the pupil of his eye. It doesn't mean it comes out of a pupil. It means it emerges. And the eye produces, preserves, and dissolves the informed infinite shadow from, through, and in its pupil, parentheses, own point. Okay. Through the gross eyes, the self sees the gross universe. Through the gross ears, hears the gross universe. Through the gross nose, and the gross universe. And through the gross senses of the gross body, the self with a capital S, that's God, experiences the gross objects of the gross universe. There's only this one witness. The one is the only one who hears through all ears, smells through all noses, speaks through all tongues, and thinks through all minds. That same one, capital O, one, God, meaning the same one self, the same one Paramatma, exists in all minds and all bodies. That's in Intelligence Notebooks. It is Paramatma that speaks through the mouth of one and listens through the ears of another. See? I said there's only one subject experiencing this illusion. It is that one self in every self. All these three bodies are false. And the mind taking the subtle and gross experiences through these bodies is also false. But the one who exists in these three bodies and through the subtle and gross bodies takes the experience of the subtle and gross universes, the two infinite bodies of God, we can skip a long parenthetical phrase, that one alone is real, is omnipresent, is in the unlimited oneness. You see, if you misunderstand that word appears, you will never be able to grasp this oneness. It'll just be a dogma. You won't feel it. You won't see it. That one is the only one who hears through all ears, smells through all noses, speaks through all tongues. See, now you start to feel the oneness with your brother when he's talking to you. That's God speaking to you. And you are God. God is in each one. Smells through all noses, speaks through all tongues, and thinks through all minds. That same one, God, meaning the same one self, the same one Paramatma, exists in all minds and all bodies. It's practically the point of the book. Just as there are different minds and different bodies, so accordingly the experience of the universe are different. But the one who experiences the illusion, the imagination, the universe, through the mediums of these different minds and different bodies, is the same one self alone. That's straight out of Intelligence Notebooks, page 7 of the second part. When he opens his eye, he produces forth the shadow and preserves it, and then he sees his infinite informed shadow through his most perfect form, subtle and gross human form. I mean, he's talking about one of his mandali, I forget which. And now this is great. Imagine that a man having 25,000 eyes is present here, but that his faculty of sight is only one. So the one seer. Now imagine further that each eye is wearing an eyeglass of a different color, and imagine a ball in front of the man. The sight sees only one ball through those 25,000 eyes, but through the eye wearing the red eyeglasses, it will see the ball is red. Through the eye wearing the yellow eyeglasses, it will see the ball is yellow. These are the sanskaras. Through the eye wearing the white-colored eyeglasses, and white means clear, Baba explains elsewhere, it will see the ball is white. The sight is only one. The ball is only one, but through the 25,000 eyes, 25,000 different colored balls are seen. Okay? That's why we're all one, but we see the same ball, world, but we see it differently because of the sanskaras. The reason being different colored eyeglasses. In this analogy, the different colors of the eyeglasses represent the subtle bodies. The different lenses of the eyes represent the gross bodies. The ball represents the universe. This means that only the one self through different subtle bodies and different gross bodies, that is, through different states of jiv and mind, jiv means body, takes different experiences of the one universe. Here's another quote. In human cases, the eye takes the experience of the same full shadow differently in different aspects according to the different infinite glasses that it receives each time. It takes a birth, essentially, to the sum total of the impressions which it receives through the last glass. So as long as sanskaras exist, Jamshed will go on receiving glasses and go on seeing his shadow in different aspects through the various glasses when his eye is open, takes the various innumerable experiences of the universe when the mind is thinking. So for him to stop seeing his shadow when the eye is open and thus make him see himself, for infinite intelligence to stop realizing the universe, to stop thinking the imagination when it is thinking, and thus make it think self, sanskaras must disappear so as to make the glasses not exist for his eye, even when it is open. Okay. So my point is there's one witness. The world is an illusion. It's created by the sanskaras, which is the other big concept that I described, which is my perceptual schemas, which come directly from the Baba's concept of sanskaras. So, I've often said that my own thinking can be described many ways, but one way is that all there is seeing and ways of seeing. There's a seeing, even God realization is the seeing of God. And then if you're unconscious, you're not seeing, but it's still a way of seeing, which is nil, because at that moment you're in deep sleep. So there's only seeing and ways of seeing, and the Om point is really that seeing, that Paramatma. If you when you describe metaphysics, you are forced to use physical analogs. So when God speaks, Baba talks about an ocean. But in the God-Man, Charles Purdom goes out of his way to say, now, don't think there's really an ocean. See, none of these things are literal. But what they're describing is literal, by the way. It's not like it's a myth. He's using the metaphors, but what he's describing with the metaphors, he means quite seriously and quite literally. So if he uses an eye to represent seeing, he literally does mean seeing. Okay? So, or if, so this point isn't a point in space. It couldn't be because it exists before space and time and after. It only, he uses that analogy. And because they have this thing with the Big Bang, the materialist theory, sounds like it. They use words like the world expands. And, oh, wow, Baba's talking about the expanding universe. No, he's not. He's absolutely not. Nor is he talking about quantum mechanics or anything like that. All those thoughts are a confused hooey. Baba is saying what he is. If he wanted to talk about quantum mechanics, he would have. So take my analogy of scintillating scotoma, which to a mind that's, to a brain, a person with a brain with this pressure problem, it appears and goes on expanding, but really nothing appears. It's illusion. It only appears to be broken glass hovering in the sky. The universe only appears to exist, and it appears to God from the point. And your experience that you're having is still being had from the point. None of us actually are seers because we don't really exist except in the imagination of God. We're simply extensions of God himself. We are simply that one seeing. And I just read you over and over and over, there's just only one. And if you follow the wrong way, and you think of this appearing like a man appears at a party and he walks in physically, then you're always going to have duality. You're always going to have duality because there's the oneness won't ever make sense. And it's a bigger problem to describe why you'll always have the mind-body problem. But that's because by the time you're done conceiving of this creation from the Big Bang, you have the problem of, well, how does consciousness get into this story? So you're supposed to be a body that formed because of particles coming together after they exploded out of the Big Bang. But you're left with the question, well, how is it that I attained the power of consciousness and the ability to perceive? And you can't answer that question if you start from that model, a materialist model. It will never be possible. And that's all I have to say, and thank you very much. And as I said, this is only my first try, and I might put it online so people can give me suggestions on how I could make it clearer. Thank you very much. I appreciate it very much. Thank you.